I know to be a doctor, you need a degree. I know a simple soldier must be tall with a strong body. To become a scientist, you need maths for this. But what must I study, Daddy, to get into politics? Son, can you be in the PNM party and your heart in the UNC? Can you be your Browne Street?
All right, so welcome back, everyone. So the Distinguished Leadership and Innovation Conference Series is a Caribbean leadership conference presented by the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. Now, the aim of this conference is to strengthen the region's capacity in the area of leadership and innovation. So here to tell us more about the event this morning is Chief Executive Officer and Professor Henrik Von Scheel. He's the key speaker at the event. All right. We do have the professor online. Professor, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. And I suspect a little later we are going to be joined by Mr. Mariano Browne. But in the meantime, Professor, what's the message that you have for the participants at this conference?
I think Arthur Lockjack University at this event has shown 20 years of leadership in leadership excellence. So they had some of the most distinguished leaders the last 20 years. And what I'm doing, I'm changing a new epoch into this, right? So I'm working with 23% of the Fortune 500 companies. And one of the things that you see today, that leadership is an evolving discipline. And the practices that you are using for the last 5 years are not working anymore because there's too many changes and disruptions from all sides. If that's regulatory changes, if that's technology changes, if that's global supply chain changes, if that's just the basic and changes on your cost of employment. So I think the leadership excellence that has been shown here for the last couple of years is actually what is the most important. So I'm excited to come, and I'm excited to come for 5 reasons. Mm-hmm. The first reason is this is for executives who need to lead their organization in time of disruption where it's constantly changing. It's also a conference for rising leaders that have the potential and need to learn the skills to lead organizations in the future. It's also for consultants that need to understand the new practices that are available for them to help to capitalize on their clients and support clients around them. It's also for students and for individuals who are entrepreneurs and game changers who see a new vision for Trinidad or new solutions, and they want to learn on how they can lead and organize something in a small scale without being a big one. And at the last one, it's actually for the pretenders who use a lot of hype words, but who have no idea what it is. So they should join as well to learn what leadership is, what the new principles are, and so on. So I'm excited to come there. Anybody who wants to use more than 5 minutes time with me, besides the conference, needs to bring a cigar. Mm-hmm. As long as the cigar lasts, I will talk to them.
Yeah. I suspect Mr. Browne, he's going to be bringing the cigars. Mr. Browne, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Marlon. Yeah. Sorry for the little delay.
No problem. I know how it is sometimes, Mr. Browne. Mr. Browne, what should we know about the conference?
Well, apart from the fact that we're bringing some high-level speakers who, in a sense, meant to introduce us to the concept of disruption and discontinuity and the changes that are taking place around us. We have some very good speakers. Professor Luke Williams, who's head of innovation at Stern Business School in New York University. And of course, you've met Professor Von Scheel,
of course,
who has been with us before, and his ideas around the fourth industrial revolution. But the concept, the how we put on this particular program is, and we focused on the theme of leadership over the last 2 years. Last year we talked about conscious leadership and the need to recognize the changes, and that's precisely because Trinidad and Tobago finds itself at a difficult moment in time. both from an economic point of view as well as from the kind of changes that are taking place around us. So that the conference theme has been deliberately chosen, as have been the speakers, because effectively what they're dealing with is change, and how we adjust to change, and how we approach the rest of the world. And quite frankly, that's one of the specific issues that faces Trinidad and Tobago. At this time, we're a small country, but that doesn't mean to say that we can't find a platform or mechanism in which to address the broader principles in a way that work for us. And that's the purpose of the theme. And that's one of the reasons why we've selected people like Henrik, and as well as Professor Williams and Matt Dunsmoor, because they talk about the issues of complacency and continuity, the kind of things that allow us to stay in the same place. And as you know, right, Trinidad has been trying to break out of, to find a model to move away from the issue of hydrocarbon and dependence on natural gas for obvious reasons. Right, the natural gas production has been declining, and we have to talk about, well, what are the other alternatives? Now that requires leadership, it requires visioning, it requires us to approach the international situation from a completely different point of view.
Yes.
So the purpose of this session, as Henrik has been pointed out, is to talk about change.
Right, yeah. And Professor, let's speak a little bit about that, because you do speak here about the aim of the conference is to strengthen the region's capacity in the area of leadership and innovation. Professor, if we can just get in a little more as to what you would want to tell participants, what are some of the components, what are some of the main issues that you think that would be a part of your presentation?
So, in the core essence, the principles that we've been applying the last 30 years in leadership and strategy have been changing quite radically. And they're changing because the environment, the pressure on the same principles have evolved so fast, right? So, at the core of it, part of it is the discussion on what is the future of leadership and what is the future of work, because people are the centerpiece of change, because people have the ability to adapt to change. So part of the discussion is saying, what are the new leadership skills that leaders need to enable people to apply technology and to adapt to everything that is around it, right? So at the core, even though it's a very much a people discussion, because people have the ability to adapt, people communicate with each other, people sell to each other, and people are motivating each other. So leadership is at the core how you interact with people and how you can lead the fold that you are responsible for and protect them and adapt them to what is changing outside towards them. And that's actually the ability that you have, right? I think Trinidad is uniquely set up in this because you have been taking the charge on leadership excellence for many years. And that means that you are hungry for new things and you have the ability to change. So you have the ability to adapt it in your own way as long as you see what is coming and know how to adapt to it in your own way. And I've been doing this all over around the world. It would be the first time I'm coming to Trinidad and to elaborate on a theme that I'm working with most of the Fortune 500 companies. But I'm never really disclosing it because it's normally something they wanted for themselves. But I think it's the time that leaders, anywhere you are, that you're able to adapt to it.
Yes. Mr. Browne, you know, when businesses, of course, when programs such as these come up, events such as these come up, the participants always look at the bottom line and the benefits to the organization. Let's speak a little bit about that. By people participating in this program, the benefits to their organization and what they can learn from it.
Well, if I could just jump in on that one, I think the key thing that we have to recognize and to understand is that change comes upon us. How we respond to it is really what matters. And the critical part of that is that within an organization, guess what, right? For the organization to move, who has the resources, where the resources going to be, who's going to deploy the resources? And the key part of that, of course, is management. And the critical issues where that is concerned, and that's one of the key factors, and the point that Henrik has been making, is that decisions are made through people. People implement decisions. People implement policies. And that requires communication. That requires a shared vision. That requires an understanding of what are the changes going to do and the changes that you need to make in your organizations. What do you need to innovate? Because people are accustomed to doing the same thing. That's how organizations operate. They operate on the basis of continuity. They operate on the basis of a platform, of a set of procedures which are geared towards carrying them in the same direction. But there are times when the external environment requires a completely different response. So, for example, and this is where we are with regard to Trinidad and Tobago. And I don't really want to get into anything too controversial, but let's just consider that production of natural gas has been declining since 2014. That's 10 years. We have 10 years of decline. And what we've been trying to do, well, we're not trying to drill, we're not trying to explore, and at least the efforts to do that haven't carried us very far. And we know that we have a foreign exchange shortage, we know we have these changes and so on. Well, government can't create it. Government can't make foreign exchange. They can put policies in positions. Business leaders have to make decisions about different ways in which to move. Now, that's reality. At the end of the day, right, a successful economy is generated by business leaders. So that's what we're talking about here. At the end of the day, the conception, the approach, the issue of innovation and changing and moving in a different direction is about getting people to move and to behave differently, to think differently. We've talked about Vision 2020. We talked about Vision 2030. We've had these visions. The reality is that you have to make a decision today on the basis of the changes that are taking place and who is going to make those decisions. Those decisions have to be made at the top. That's how you move organizations forward. And that's one of the reasons why it's called a Leadership and Innovation Conference. That's where we're going. And the idea is that change must start, it's taking place all around us. But to understand and to pull the levers of power within a corporation, you need business leaders to make those type of decisions.
Yes.
So that when you're talking about the bottom line, that's exactly what this conference is about. How do we address the bottom line? How do we keep businesses functional? How we allow them to adapt to the changes? And how do we carry them in a different direction? How do we carry the economy forward? Right? That requires thought. And it also requires action. You can't, if you don't have a vision, you know what they say, the people perish.
Yes.
So the reality is you've got to get leaders, business leaders, thinking along those lines. And that's the purpose of these type of conferences. This is what we're doing.
Yes.
Right? So it has a specific orientation where that is concerned.
Yes. And Professor, it's a matter of survival, right? Business survival. And I'm sure that it has to also take into consideration AI now.
Yeah, that's right. So many leaders, they face the challenge to see where they want to automate and what will be the future skills that they need within their own resources, right? That's one of the things that I will elaborate on as well, right? But I would just want to make the point. If you want to invest into the future, you actually invest in people. If you want to have the Trinidad business community, if they come together at one table, they have a common understanding on what is there. They can learn from each other. They can learn new principles, so they can learn, unlearn, and then they can move jointly forward together, right? The challenge is often they are unable to lift the table alone. Right. They need partners around them to lift the table because the table is just too heavy. So leadership actually depends on each other. So I hope at the conference to see the leadership community, right? So they can inspire each other, right? So it's my first time there, so yeah. I look forward to meet everybody.
Yes.
This is the first time Professor Von Scheel has been here personally. Yes. Right? But Professor Scheel has worked with us before, I might add. He's been a visiting professor for a year, and he was our star speaker in 2021, right? When we are coming out of COVID, and we had a completely online conference, and Professor Von Scheel led the conference in that regard. and he worked with us for about a year in terms of several different workshops with several different of our students as well as players in the system. So this is an opportunity once again. And remember, we've been talking about digitalization and digitization for quite some time.
Yes.
The answer is, has it made a difference? Well, this is one of Professor Von Scheel's specialties, and this is his area of competence, and which he has led. I mean, he has literally defined and labeled the changes that were taking place. So that we're bringing people who understand what is required to be done and the changes that are required to make.
Yes.
It's for us now to learn and listen.
Yeah, Mr. Browne, give us how do participants register for the conference?
Well, I mean, you can call us, but we also have an online registry system which works at our website. So you can come into DLIC 2024, and that gives you all the information and the contact numbers in terms of getting in touch with us. So that's the best way to get it done.
Yeah. When is the conference being held?
The conference is going to be held next week, Wednesday. Professor Von Scheel will come in on Monday, so he'll be available, and we're trying to arrange 1 or 2 sessions with interested parties. But we are on all day at the Hyatt on Wednesday next week, Wednesday the 24th, from 9 until 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Professor, anything else you like to add before you leave us this morning?
No, I'm looking forward to meet people, right? At the core, it's all about people and investing in people and focusing on people, right? We are the ones that are able to adapt. We are the ones that are able to make a difference, right? It's the same thing for Trinidad, right? It's the people that will make the difference in the future. And that ignites in the leadership.
Yeah. Mr. Browne, your final comments?
Well, looking forward to seeing you there too, Marlon, and looking forward to Trinidad and Tobago, because there are challenges in front of us, and the thinking that got us to this position, we can't use it to carry us out, just to paraphrase Einstein. All right, so complacency and continuity are great if the business model is working. If the business model needs to change, it's not going to help us. We need to move and we need to innovate.
Yeah. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure speaking with you all. Thank you very much for the information that you have given us this morning, and wish you all the best for your conference. Bye for now.
Thank you.
All right. So it's time for another break. But first, we have this for you. It's an image from a viewer. What do you have in store for us? Let's see. The image is me.